Hey, this is our first installment of tips for our buyers in today's new world. I'd like to introduce Paul Hart, who is an executive mortgage banker with William Ravis, and he has some really great tips for buyers in today's market for mortgages. So, Paul, are banks still lending?
Thank you, Gene. Yes, banks are still lending. There's a bunch of information out there that's not totally accurate, but banks are lending. I feel right now for buyers, you could still get into your home with 3% down, 5% down. You do not need 20% down. Now, there's certain investors or banks that have required a 20% down payment, but that's not the norm. The biggest thing right now for buyers because of the pandemic is your credit score. Credit score is huge right now. It's always been important, but more so now. Some lenders have raised their minimum scores. For example, if a client needed to go FHA, the FHA credit score minimum has raised 100 points. So it used to be 580 where you can do an FHA file. Right now it's 680. So
Wow.
that's the largest change right now.
FHA is when you put 5% down.
FHA, you could do as little as 3.5% down with FHA. FHA is great for buyers that might have some credit challenges, but now with everything that has changed, that 100-point raise that they've done eliminates a lot of buyers from going FHA. So basically, when I speak to a new buyer, we kind of talk this out, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are always the better options in my opinion. And again, with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you could still get into a home with 3% down.
Okay, great. Um, so the 20% down is really preferable because you avoid PMI.
Correct. So PMI is a private mortgage insurance. That's on any loan where a client puts or a buyer puts less than 20% down. If you do have the 20%, you want to put that down, then you avoid the PMI payment. That's a monthly charge. But that monthly charge is only until you pay the loan down or the equity position in your home reaches 80% or 78%.
All right. What are today's rates?
Rates are all dependent on credit score and down payment. However, right now the rates are superb. Um, they were putting 5% down. Very good credit though. Credit score is above 780, but 780 credit with 5% down, he was getting quoted 2.875 on a 30-year fixed.
Wow.
Um, and that's also too with Ravis, I have access to 25 lenders. So the benefit here is that we underwrite everything in house. So once we underwrite everything in house, then we deliver the files to the investors or the banks. So that gives us a huge advantage as far as rate pricing and timing for the buyer.
How often are those mortgages sold to different banks?
Well, we can close in William Ravis Mortgage name, and then we sell them to the investor. So for instance, let's say we did a file and we closed on Monday. I would say maybe it takes a couple of weeks, but then that file ultimately will end at, it could end at Wells, and at Chase, BB&T, Peoples. I mean, they go all over the place. It's just a matter of does not change their rate and term on the file, does not change their mortgage payment. It's just where you're making the payment.
Now, what's the advantage about going with Ravis versus Wells or Chase or another broker?
So the difference is when you walk into Wells, Chase, Bank of America, I'm just picking on the big four. When you walk into them, that's retail pricing. Plus their processing when you do a mortgage with them is the client is just a loan number. A lot of those lenders will take pricing and bring in a ton of files. Well, when they bring in those ton of files, then what happens is the processing gets affected. So it could take a lot longer for them to get that file done. And the customer service honestly isn't that great. With Ravis, we do everything in-house, like I said earlier. So my files go to the same two people every single time. I have my own assistant, Holly, and my processor, Michelle. Those two help me out. Everything goes through them. And then let's say we have an issue with a file. Here, I'll give you an example where the pandemic started and Chase had their own overlay where they want 20% down on a loan. So if our file was, say, earmarked with Chase, we were able to take that file out of there and move it to another investor where we can still keep 10% down payment for the buyer. So having that flexibility with us means we can move the files around if we have some unforeseen circumstances that pop up.
That's great. Now, the 2.85% that you just quoted, is that for a can you get that for a jumbo loan, or is that?
No, that's a good question. So basically, those loans or those files that are under 510,400, that's your conforming bucket. That's where that pricing is at right now. As you move higher on your loan amount, the pricing does change because it's a higher loan amount and it's higher risk. Right now, between 510,400 and 765, we're having pricing. Everybody's having pricing issues in that Fannie Mae high balance bucket. So what we're trying to do is I move it around to different investors to find the best pricing for that particular product. If they're above 765 or jumbo loans, then pricing's back pretty well. I think right now jumbo 30-year fixed is about 3.25.
Now, 2.85%, is that the lowest you've seen for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right before the pandemic started, rates were very low, and then once all this kind of came to fruition, rates popped up, and now they've worked themselves back down. We've been pretty stable for the last 2.5, 3 weeks, so it's been a little quiet, which was nice. It was very volatile in March, but right before, I would say the end of February, the rates were about the same, 2.875. So I haven't seen it lower yet, but we don't know.
Right.
It will go with more.
So so talk about pre-approval.
So pre-approvals, there's many different verbiages. So sometimes you'll see something called a pre-qualification. You'll see a pre-approval, and then we have a certified pre-approval. Typically, you want some sort of pre-approval. Pre-qualifications are verbal conversation, and I've seen lately, February, March, I've caught a couple where the pre-qualifications that an agent has received, credit wasn't even pulled. So it really doesn't mean anything for you, the agent, when your buyer is going out with a pre-qualification.
How can an agent or a seller see the difference between a letter that's a pre-approval versus a pre-qualification?
It should say right on it. A pre-qualification letter will say pre-qual or pre-qualification. Pre-approval will say it. On a pre-approval, the buyer should be providing at least the 2019 W-2, 1 month of pay stubs, and I would say 1 month of the asset, the bank account where they're pulling their money to do the purchase. What we do is if a client will provide that with me up front, then I can give you a certified pre-approval, because then I'm taking that information and I'm running it through an automated underwrite. So then now you have a solid, confident buyer on your hands, so that when you guys make your offer, you're telling the other side everything is basically in, but we have a couple more things to do. However, it's a certified where I've already seen the pay stubs, I've already seen the W-2s.
Great. So talk a little bit about Ravis Refresh for buyers.
Ravis Refresh is great. So that's an awesome tool for you guys as the agents, where if you have if you have a seller that has a property that they need to fix up, whether it's paint, whether it's a bathroom, kitchen, cabinets, anything to make the property more marketable for you, they now can use Ravis Refresh, where basically we will do the construction and fixing up for that seller. And then at the end, once the property sells, then the however much money they used is paid back.
Can buyers use this?
Buyers cannot use that, because buyers are basically buying the property that the selling agent is selling.
I see. All right. Do you have anything else to add, Paul?
No, I'm here for you. I'm very accessible. Everybody knows you can contact me, email me, call me, text me. Even just with questions. I mean, when a first-time buyer is buying a home, it's a big step for them. So it seems very scary, but everybody here, we're more than willing to help you out, answer questions, get it done for you, and also in a timely manner.
So what should a first-time buyer do before talking with you? what type
The
of?
only thing you really have to do is, like I said, if you have your W-2 here, so your 2019 W-2 available, a pay stub available, then we can work the debt to income ratio, which is very important on your purchase. Then we'll talk about how much you have for your down payment, whether it's 3%, 5%, 10 or more. And then ultimately do the numbers. I'll give you some payments, and that's really the first step.
And what's your phone number, Paul, for people to reach out?
Anybody can reach me at 914-263-8131. And my email here at Ravis is my name. It's Paul, Paul, Hart, Hart, at ravis.com.
Awesome. Well, you've been great with my buyers. They all rave about you, you know, your turnaround, your accessibility, your attention to detail, and I really appreciate that. So,
Thank you so much, Jean.
yeah, thanks for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.